What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about what's something that a lot of people in the gaming community are talking about. This whole thing with The Last of Us, all the politics behind it, and a lot of the things going on in the YouTube community in regards to copyright strikes, the whole ball of wax. It's probably going to be a little lengthy, the video, because I do have a lot to say. So unless you have something better to do, grab a cup of coffee and, I'm just going to, let you know my thoughts on all this stuff. But before we talk about that, yes, there is an announcement that 704 is going to announce something big next week about the next NASCAR game. I'm just letting you guys know, don't expect a lot. If I have to predict, it's probably going to be, who's on the cover and the actual release date. That's, to me, not really big news, but you never know. Maybe they will talk a little bit about what they actually worked on in the game. As I've said many times before, I'm just giving you guys fair warning. This game isn't going to be the same level of improvements, or I should say that the step forward that we've seen in the past couple of games. It's going to be, really a bunch of small little things, maybe polish this, that. My main thing is that they released this game and finally they can just move on to the next gen, start from scratch. They're going to build a game from from scratch, new game engine, all that good stuff, and hopefully they can get it right coming out the box for the next time, for the next big release. And hopefully they take their time, they focus on the things that really matter, the offline career mode, and finally really deliver the type of game we've been waiting for so many years. And the sooner they can move on and start working on that, the better. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to be real disappointed if we go through this thing where they release NASCAR E5 and then they're just talking about DLC, paint schemes. I don't want to hear shit about that stuff. I know that these guys have to try to find ways to make extra money and all that, but please just, move on to the next gen and start fresh. And the whole community has done countless videos on the things we want from these games. And, if all else fails, just look at, Codemasters and the F1 series. That's the type of games that we want to get, in terms of NASCAR. So there's not much else to say about that. Depending on what they announce next week, I'll talk about it then. So moving on from that to the main issue and the thing that this video is really all about. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know this whole controversy with The Last of Us 2 and the release and the leaks. And, it's really part of a larger conversation, which is what I want to have right now. This whole culture, PC culture, SJW culture, woke culture, all of this stuff that we've been seeing in the entertainment industry in recent years, and it's really all coming to a head now. And you see Star Wars and the whole mess that that has become, that franchise, because of people like Kathleen Kennedy and this other square-faced chick that came out of nowhere. I never heard of her before, but she's also super involved. I forgot her name. I think her last name is Headland or whatever. Then you have The Last of Us 2, and this person, her name is Anita Sarkeesian. She's a grifter. She's been around for years, and she has used the gaming industry to promote herself and this whole SJW feminist movement, and she's a grifter. She's taken a lot of money from people who believe in her cause. Uh, think of it what you may, but she's collected a lot of money from these people, and under the guise of, oh, I'm going to create a whole series of videos that go in depth, really deep, that talk about the industry, sort of an expose type of thing. Never really happened. It took years for anyone to see anything, and when they finally saw something, it's just really generic, shitty, low budget videos that anybody could have made in their spare time, and certainly did not exhibit the type of production values that you would expect for the type of money she collected. I'm not going to get into all the numbers and specifics. I would have to go back and really research that stuff. I mean, anyone can look her up all over YouTube, all over the internet. She's a grifter. She's a scammer. She's not a real gamer. She pretends to be. You can tell. When you do some research on her, you can tell that she is not really somebody that really cares about gaming. It's sort of just a vehicle for her to promote her agenda. The same agenda we see with Kathleen Kennedy and all these other people. So we've seen how every time these people, they are able to force feed their narrative and their agenda into, let's say, a movie or a video game, there is huge profit losses for these, if it's a game developer or a movie producer, the people that actually are behind the corporations that create these, films and video games. They always take a hit. And it exposes something to me that I don't think, a lot of people talk about all this stuff, but there are certain aspects of it that I'm going to talk about that I don't really think other people have really hit on, right? In particular, this one thing where this whole agenda with this whole, feminism and this whole LGBTQ community trying to force feed a narrative to promote an agenda into entertainment. It always fails, right? So, I mean, the only metric you can use to really judge something is profits. So if something is really makes a lot of money, it's a success. Whether or not you might think it's quality or not, it's a success, right? Financially. But every time this happens, these studios take a big hit. You've seen it in the Marvel universe with this Captain Marvel, and you've seen it in the Star Wars franchise with Kathleen Kennedy for years now. It's a huge mess, right? And you would think Disney would learn from that and say, we got to get away from this. Let's get back to what was actually successful. But they're caught up in this whole movement, and they're allowing these people like Kathleen Kennedy and this Headland woman and people like Arnita Sarkeesian to dictate the narrative. And these people, any amount of research will expose them as either grifters or, in the case of like Kathleen Kennedy, a glorified assistant. Basically, that's, just knowing the right people, working under the right people, but that's really her only credentials. And yet she was handed the keys to the kingdom, and she's got this autonomous power to do whatever the fuck she wants. And you've seen the mess that she's helped create. So she's destroyed and helped destroy, right? Because honestly, I think that George Lucas has a lot of blame. And before Kathleen Kennedy ever took control, or Disney, I was not a fan of the prequels. I did a video on that a while back. I'm not going to rehash that. But the bottom line is, these corporations like Disney and or huge game developers like Naughty Dog, they allow these people to come in and advise them on how to go about a project, and they don't have any big credentials. These people are just, I mean, any amount of research would tell you these people have no business in game development or in the film industry. They just, what is it you bring to the table? They're ruining these businesses. So Star Wars, Disney has lost countless millions, and now Naughty Dog doing what they're doing. The leaks are all out, and they chose to destroy their own franchise. What made The Last of Us what it was so popular is the story and the characters. It wasn't the gameplay, really. The gameplay is very generic. It's the same old, cover, run, shoot mechanic you see in most games, most third-person games. And it's a very linear experience. It's not an open-world game where at least you can attack missions and objectives from different angles and try different ways of completing that objective. At least there is some variety there. With The Last of Us, it's very linear, so it relies heavily on a story and characters. So even the story, if you really want to get technical, wasn't the deepest story, but it was well written, and it's really the characters that made The Last of Us what it was. People fell in love with the characters and their interaction with each other. So Naughty Dog chooses, and I'm not going to blame it all on Anita Sarkeesian either, but she was involved. To what extent, I'm not sure, but they took, advice from her. She's not a game developer, so what else could she have done? And Naughty Dog decided to go down this path. They took the one thing it had going for it, that people were looking forward to this game, and they shit all over it, and they just insult their fan base. You took the main character, and according to leaks, and it's definitely legit, they had somebody that we don't know anything about that supposedly is part of the ending of the first game, even though we don't really have any connection to the story. But supposedly someone, a doctor or somebody that Joel killed towards the end of the first game, had a daughter or a son who is now transgendered, and this is the person now who is going to be the main character here. She ends up killing Joel, okay, the main character of the first game, and the other main character is Ellie. I guess you could kind of say it's a 50-50 deal, because they were both, the strength of their relationship in the first game is what made it what it was. So, kills Joel with a golf club, a tranny, okay, that nobody cares about, that nobody really knows anything about this person, brutally kills this popular character with a golf club. So you're basically spitting in your fan base's face. Then you end up playing as this person, he, she, whatever it is, and now you are going after Ellie, the other main character of the first game that people loved. And your mission is to track her down and kill her. And you're playing the game as this person doing this. So you couldn't make a worse scenario if you tried. If it was your intention to piss people off, you could not have done a better job. So you shit all over everything that made the first game great to push a narrative. And we're hearing people say, who defend it by saying, oh, you don't know the full context, you should play the game first because you'll see how it all ties together. No. Nobody's buying that. There's nothing you could do, there's no way you could twist yourself into a pretzel to the point where it makes sense or it's acceptable or palatable to a gamer who is a fan of this franchise, or at least a fan of the first game. So it's a train wreck, and it's all because of this agenda, this narrative being pushed. Now, I'm not somebody who says, oh, I could never play a game or watch a movie that is driven by a homosexual or a transsexual character. I'm not one of those people. I'm a very open-minded person. I'm a live and let live type of person. And I don't really, it depends on how it's done. There are people out there that no matter how well written or what you do with a character like that, they're not going to accept it no matter what. But you can't change the world. You can't force feed shit to people and expect them to just change. That's not how life works. There are ways of subtly doing things where if it's done well, people can at least accept it as entertainment. So I'm going to give you two examples, right, in the film industry where it was done well, where there was actually one had a male homosexual character, and the other one is an older film actually had a transsexual in the film as one of the main characters, and these films were actually great films. And if you're somebody who is open-minded and just fair-minded and you watch these films, you can enjoy these films and accept it for great filmmaking. Why is that? Because these are very well-written, well-acted, well-produced films. The story never felt like it was preachy or pandering or trying to force feed a specific narrative to you. It was just telling a story. And it just happened to be that the characters were homosexual or transsexual, whatever the case is. And these are great films. And I would suggest that if you haven't watched it, and, as an example of how it can be done in a positive way, one is a more recent film, which is Moonlight. If you haven't seen that film, it's a really, really great film. And yeah, the main theme is some guy who's coming to terms with his sexuality, and he's gay, but the way the film is filmed and it's told and the story and everything, you don't feel like you're being force-fed a narrative. You just feel like, hey, this is a great film. And it's a film that makes you think in a positive way. Not that it's forcing you to think about some politics, but it's making you think, because it's such a well produced and well acted and well told story. A much older film is The Crying Game. Some of you may have seen it. I don't know. But I don't want to spoil it for you or anything like that, but suffice it to say, the film does revolve around this guy who gets involved with a transsexual. And, there's a lot more to the film. It is a very deep, well-written, mature film. If you're somebody who just can't handle a theme like that, then maybe it's not for you. But if you watch it and you give it a fair chance, I promise you, you'll walk away and you'll say, you know what, that's a good film. And you don't feel like that you were just force-fed something that you just don't, want any part of. So it is possible to do this, to tell those kind of stories. The problem is what we've been seeing a lot of in Star Wars, with the Marvel, with this Last of Us 2, is a force-fed, agenda-driven narrative that makes no sense. It's just forced into these projects, and they're shitting all over existing franchises. So that's a big problem, and that is One, I wanted to point out that the people behind this stuff, they're grifters, and they're really not qualified to really be involved in projects like this. And these companies that are allowing it to happen, they're losing a lot of money. And it's surprising to me because you would think that a corporation like Disney or a big time game developer like Naughty Dog would pay attention to what's going on in the industry, in their industry, and realize that, you know what, this is not working. From a financial standpoint, this shit is failing. Everybody that's doing it is losing money. Another movie that lost a lot of money and just was a failure was the last Charlie's Angels movie that came out not that long ago. And it was directed by Elizabeth Banks, who I like. I think that she's, as an actress, I like her. But she blames men. She blames everyone except herself. And the fact that you are tailoring these films around a narrative that people just don't want. Who wants to spend money, their hard-earned money, to go out and watch a film like that? And she blames men, she blames everyone, but you know who she doesn't blame? You know who Anita Sarkeesian doesn't blame for all this negative publicity and the fact that this game's going to lose a lot of money when it comes out? And Star Wars losing money, Kathleen Kennedy's not blaming these people. They're not blaming the very community they're trying to pander to and cater to. The feminist community, the SJW community. They're not blaming them when it's these people who are not supporting these products. If you're tailoring these films and these games towards these people, why aren't they going out and spending their money on it? You watch what happens. This is going to lose a shitload of money for Naughty Dog. They're going to blame me, people like me, all these other people. But they're not going to look in the mirror. They're not going to say, you know what, we should have known better. Why are we listening to this grifter, Anita Sarkeesian? Why did we go along with this narrative and why did we shit all over our own franchise, popular characters, and the fan base that was ready to go out and spend $60 on this game? Why did we shit all over these people, spit in their face, and cater to a community that isn't going to buy this fucking game to anyway? This SJW community, this woke community, this feminist community doesn't buy video games. I'm not saying that none of them do, but not in big enough numbers to justify what they're doing. Star Wars. You shit all over the original fan base in favor of a community that doesn't spend money to go out and watch these fucking woke films anyway. So who are you making these films for if the very people you make them to appease don't spend the money? And for these corporations and these big developers not to see that is astounding to me. But Naughty Dog is going to learn. Sony also is. So they're going to blame the average everyday gamer. The same way that they blame the people that are most likely to go out and spend money to watch a Star Wars film or a Marvel film or whatever. You're blaming the wrong people. Smart business dictates that you give people what they want. And if the majority of video gamers like specific type of games, you give them what they want. Did you think that the people that wanted this, The Last of Us Part 2, that were waiting years for this game, that this is what they want? You deserve to lose every dime that you lost on this because of this. You deserve it, Naughty Dog. And that brings me to the next thing, right? Before I say something else, I'm just saying, if these people had a strong enough agenda that where they can actually create great films and a cool video game that has these things as part of the narrative, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but if they actually thought that they could do that, they would do it without attaching themselves to already existing franchises. Why do you need to latch on to Star Wars and completely change what it was? Why do you need to latch on to The Last of Us and latch off the popularity of that franchise if you actually had something worth selling? The reason that they use existing popular franchises is because they know this is the only hope they have to promote their agenda to hopefully a large enough audience. That's why they do it. So that is actually proof that this woke agenda is a dead end. Otherwise, you would just go out and create your own game. Why don't they just do their own side project, do a one-off game, and do what they want from scratch? And then if people like it, they like it. Maybe it will gain some traction on its own and have its own community. But they don't do it. Why? Because they know that they're not going to be able to sell enough copies of a game like that unless it's attached to a popular franchise. So what they're doing is proof that this shit is a dead end. So this whole thing is really bad. And last but not least, Sony, Naughty Dog is they're going after people. They're issuing copyright strikes for falsely doing it because people they're not breaking any copyright agreements, or YouTube already has guidelines, and people who are following guidelines are still getting hit. They're having videos demonetized. They're having videos even removed. So here's the thing. Everybody's mad at Sony and Naughty Dog, rightfully so. But YouTube is, to me, the worst of the bunch, because if you're a YouTuber who makes a living on YouTube and you monetize and you followed the guidelines, you did nothing wrong, and somebody issues a copyright strike or has your video deleted, YouTube is supposed to protect you. They're supposed to help you. But that's not the way they operate. All someone has to do is make a claim, and YouTube just does whatever they're told by these corporations. Then it's up to the YouTuber to go through out of their way to prove that they did nothing wrong, and hope that YouTube actually investigates and maybe undoes goes back on the copyright, maybe reissues your video and puts it up again. Whatever the case is, it's up to the YouTuber. You're on your own, and YouTube should be there to protect you and defend you. And if in the case of somebody making a copyright strike or claim, they're supposed to look and investigate and say, wait a minute, this person did not use any footage, they didn't use any photos, there is something called fair use, they're following the guidelines, they did nothing wrong. We are not issuing a copyright strike, and we're not going to delete the video. But see, that's not how it works. YouTube is afraid of these big corporations. They do whatever they're told, and then they hope that, most YouTubers probably they'll eat it. Now, me personally, I'm a very small YouTuber. I don't make money doing this. I don't monetize. This video might get taken down. I don't know. But it doesn't affect me financially, and I'm a small YouTuber. I don't really have a big following. It is what it is. But for these big YouTubers with a huge following and subscriber count, people that really, this is how they make a living, I'm going to issue some advice to you right now. If you happen to be a big YouTuber and you get hit by these people and you didn't violate any copyright infringement, or you followed guidelines properly, my suggestion is you try to get in touch with other big YouTubers who are in the same position. And I see it's all over the internet, it's all over YouTube. There's countless gaming YouTubers, big time YouTubers, who are going through all this shit. You guys need to get together, file a class action lawsuit, not just against Sony and Naughty Dog for issuing false copyright claims and for getting videos taken down falsely, but against YouTube as well. If you don't go after YouTube, this is never going to end. You file a class action lawsuit. Pool your resources together, get some good lawyers, and file a class action lawsuit. If you did not break any guidelines, if you followed guidelines and you didn't really do anything wrong, then guess what? This will never go to court. They'll settle out of court, but the big issue is sending a message that you're not going to just take it. Don't take this lying down. File a class action lawsuit. Include YouTube. YouTube is actually the worst offender of all, because they're the ones who go along with this bullshit. This is a huge problem with this platform, and I would be livid if I actually made a living doing this and I had a huge following. I'd be pissed off. But you guys have to go after them with a class action lawsuit and send a message. You know, you are a YouTuber. YouTube should help you. They shouldn't be helping these corporations. Now, and there are people who post things they're not supposed to post, you break guidelines, but that's why you have guidelines. Go after people that are actually breaking guidelines and copyright infringement. Don't just blindly strike people just because Sony, issued a claim, or Naughty Dog. Fuck these people. And YouTube should be ashamed of themselves. So, I hope that this video stays up, and I wouldn't be shocked if it gets taken down. But I really think you guys in the big YouTubers who actually monetize and make a living off of this, you guys should all band together and file a class action lawsuit. And, not just against Sony and Naughty Dog, include YouTube. You got to start letting these guys know you mean business. And you have every right, if you're following guidelines, to do what you do. Don't let these fucking people just do whatever they want. And it's YouTube's the one that you really should be going after. Sony and Naughty Dog and these other people, they're going to do whatever they feel like doing, because as long as they can get away with it, why not? Naughty Dog is desperate right now. They're trying to squash everything. They don't want anybody talking about any of this because it's going to kill their sales. Right? So what's it to them? There's no penalty for them to lie and to say that you get claims on you and strike your videos down, and if there's no price to pay, they're going to keep doing it. YouTube is to blame for this. That's why there are fucking guidelines. If people are following the guidelines, YouTube should defend these YouTubers. This is fucked up, but this is the way the world works with these corporations. They own everything, and they catch all the breaks. But if you band together, file a class action lawsuit, let these people know you mean business. I promise you, it will never go to court. Because if you're in the right and you actually follow guidelines, they know they don't want this shit to go to court. They'll settle out of court. But you sent a message that you're not going to take it lying down. You will fight back. That's the way to do it. If you don't issue a lawsuit, if you don't file, a class action lawsuit or something and get a bunch of people involved, it's never going to end. And if it's not Naughty Dog, it'll be someone else. And, this shit's out of control. Just on a side note, I know a lot of you guys probably have assumptions about me. Political leanings. I've talked about things in the past. I do try to keep it to a minimum, but if I believe in something, I'm going to give you my opinion. I took some heat for what I thought that maybe I put out a video about, the Matt Kenseth being hired and stuff like that. And I thought, hey, it was a missed opportunity. I put forward some ideas. I'm not going to go through that, but I do think people that took, or at least made assumptions about me. Without getting too deep into it, I don't belong to a political party. I don't believe in that. I think that whether you're a Democrat, Republican, conservative, whatever, you belong to a party. It's foolish, and none of these people give two shits about you or me. If you really think there's a difference between Republicans and Democrats, then you really don't know anything about politics. You haven't been paying attention. I don't belong to a political party. I do have beliefs. I do have certain ideologies. I'm not going to get into it. I do lean a progressive, but that doesn't mean that I'm against everything conservative, and it doesn't mean I support everything liberal. So I don't want to go further into it, but don't make assumptions. I like to take every individual situation and I judge it, individually. I don't just lump everything together in one pot. That's what happens when you belong to a political party and you have this, specific, hey, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Doesn't fucking matter. People are pissed off about all this other shit because for a reason, right? There is a right way and a wrong way to go about things. And people aren't stupid. They know when something is disingenuous, when it's being forced. Nobody wants something forced to them, especially if you're buying a product. $60 fucking video game that you've been looking forward to for 2 years, and then you find out this fucking horrible mess, and it's just a tool to promote an agenda. Nobody likes that. And, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative. We can agree that, hey, this shit is bullshit. And take each situation individually. There might be a situation in the future where, somebody creates something or a game and it has certain themes in it. But if it's well done, I'll defend it. Right? I'm not saying, hey, like I said, I brought up 2 good examples of movies that are really, really good films. Because they're well written. They're well, the acting, everything. If you watch the film and you're a mature person, you will appreciate what it is. You don't walk away feeling these people just took my money to try to force feed a narrative. But that's very rare. And that's why I pointed out how these people, Anita Sarkeesian, Kathleen Kennedy, all these people, if they really thought that they could create something that would push their agenda, they wouldn't attach it to Star Wars. They wouldn't attach it to a game that is so popular with The Last of Us. They attach themselves to popular franchises because it's an easy way to try to get their foot in the door and force feed a narrative. If they just did their own separate project that had nothing to do with an existing popular franchise, crickets. Nobody would care. And they know that. those are my thoughts on this. I hope you guys, got something from it. Uh, if you disagree, that's fine. But man, this shit's out of control. It's a mess. And like I said, my advice to you, if the big YouTubers out there, right? This doesn't really affect me. I don't give a damn. This is one of the reasons I don't monetize. I don't ask for subscribers because, I can say what I want. I don't give a fuck. If I get a video taken down, it doesn't affect my life financially. This isn't a livelihood thing for me. It is for a lot of people. You want to fight back. There's only one language these people understand. Money. File a class action lawsuit and do it. Do it every time they fucking pull some bullshit. I promise you, YouTube is not going to like having all these big names banding together and filing a lawsuit because they don't have a leg to stand on. They're the ones that issued these guidelines, and if you follow these guidelines, you're going to win. They don't have a leg to stand on. And eventually they're going to have to start, being more careful. So, that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. And next week, when NASCAR Heat 5 news comes out, I'll talk about it. But I wouldn't expect much. If I was a betting man, I'd say it's probably just who's going to be on the cover and the actual release date. I really do hope they release a little more information. Maybe let us know, little features, little things. Maybe, we know there's not going to be a paint booth, but let's say they actually went in and did some of the things I talked about in my previous video. Yeah, just say, hey, although there isn't a paint booth this year, we did add some things to the customization, templates and maybe some number fonts, and we gave you a lot more options, and also we gave you the ability to, or we're giving you the ability to use these custom schemes as an owner in career mode, which you can't do right now. You're going to have more options, more freedom, and be able to save multiple custom schemes where you can change before each race. You get to select which custom scheme you want to run. These are little baby step improvements, but they would go a long way to maybe please some people. There's going to be people annoyed that there's no paint booth, but I've done my part. This is a small channel. A lot of people don't watch, so I've been trying to get the word out, not to expect too much, but let's see what they announce. And I'm just looking more towards the future. Hopefully, once they release this, there isn't like a whole couple of months of, hey, we're working on DLC paint scheme. I don't want to hear that shit. I just want them to move away, move forward into the future, start working on the next gen consoles. They're building the game from scratch, new game engine, everything. Work on that. Take your time. I'll talk more about that in the future when the time is right. But those are my thoughts, and I look forward to your comments.